This is CBC Vancouver News.
Our persistence paid off, and we eventually obtained evidence linking the cases.
14 years after they were first reported, Vancouver police announced charges in a string of sexual assaults.
Everything with the price like going up, right? But you need them.
Back to school means some painful math for parents and guardians as bags, pencils, and activities get more expensive.
You got 30 minutes to send 4 of them peach leans over to my hotel room right now.
And sometimes you just need a Bellini. Or 4? Drake gets frosty with a drink order in Vancouver. Good evening, I'm Dan Burritt. Thanks for joining us. If you're the parent or guardian of a student, you know that it's time to prep for back to school. But your wallet may be feeling even lighter this year. From backpacks to after-school activities, the price of many things has risen. Liam Britton is looking at the consequences.
Like pens, like even those book notes.
Backpacks will be full, but mom and dad's wallets, not so much. Yong Yu just needs basics like pens and notebooks for her kids in university.
Simple stuff. Generally, everything with the price like going up, right? But you need them. It's not something you can miss.
Natalia Stratulad is buying clothes and a backpack for her kids in elementary school.
The clothes, that's one thing that they run out quite fast. They grow and also they wear them, and shoes too. Yeah, for a good pair of shoes, the prices are quite high.
Inflation has grown many price tags this year.
Well, here's a math lesson parents won't welcome. Turns out many back-to-school expenses are up from last year, according to Stats Canada. Textbooks and supplies up almost 3%. Extracurricular activities like sports and music lessons, 5.5%. And as for stationery, that's up almost 13%. And for families who can't afford those increases, they're turning to charities.
The school supply is almost $100 for one kid.
In Delta and Surrey, the Guru Nanak Food Bank is holding a school supply drive.
A lot of pencils, erasers, sharpeners, sticky notes, calculators. People, coming here to the food bank for food, they are concerned about the supplies as their kids is almost ready to go back to the schools.
The YWCA says many single parents especially feel the pinch.
Transportation costs and housing costs just make everything else, and groceries make everything else really tough to come up with those extra funds that you really need this time of year.
Teachers are shelling out for supplies too.
We'll have colleagues who are stocking up their classroom with things that most people wouldn't think of, like food, because they are very aware that there will be students coming to the classroom who routinely don't have adequate food.
BC's Education Ministry says it's providing unprecedented help for families struggling with school costs. $214 million over 3 years for school food programs, and a supplement for families on assistance to help with extra expenses. But in the meantime, with living costs high, some parents will dread the ring of the cash register before the ring of the first bell. Liam Britton, CBC News, Vancouver.
So how can you save a bit more cash as you shop for back-to-school supplies? Earlier tonight, our Anita Bath spoke with the man called the Money Debunker on TikTok. He has some advice.
We've been doing bulk purchases. We've bought notebooks, pencils, erasers many years ago at super low prices. I want to say we bought notebooks at 75 cents. We bought hundreds of them. Those same notebooks are going for $3.59 right now. Another tip I have for you guys is always plan ahead. What I like to do is throughout the school year, I'll make like a small list on the side. I need this item, I need this item. And whenever they're on sale, I like to pick them up along the way.
The shortage of BC teachers is expected again this year, and that is likely to put pressure on current staff.
There are some places where they are again concerned that they're not going to have an adequate staff to run their schools or their district properly. We know that's already happening. We know that there are more calls out, more hiring of uncertified individuals happening across the province. So it's going to be more of the same.
The BC Teachers Federation says staffing shortages will mean fewer services for students and families. That includes fewer education assistants and workers who are able to support learners with special needs. Now, if back to school wasn't expensive enough, gas prices are soaring ahead of the Labor Day long weekend. It's over $2 a litre across parts of BC. As Renee Filipponi explains, it raises a familiar debate over the cause: market forces or lack of regulation.
The price at most pumps in Vancouver is more than $2 a litre, and it could get worse.
I mean, they're already too high right now, so going any higher is just a bit ridiculous.
Prices normally spike heading into long weekends as Canadians hit the road.
When people drive, what happens? There's demand for gasoline. So when there's demand for gasoline, when the supply is restrictive, what happens to pricing? It goes up. What we expect.
This analyst says the supply is restricted because of refinery issues. A fire in Louisiana took a refinery offline earlier this week. And then there is Hurricane Idalia, which has led to the stockpiling of gas.
When you have hurricane season, refineries actually had to shut down for several weeks post-hurricane because there are damages.
It's basically companies doing
But not everyone is buying it.
The oil companies are gouging consumers. They got to fill up
Economist
that tank.
Mark Lee says Canadians are struggling to make ends meet, and the government needs to step in.
So there's no reason why you couldn't have a more regulated price system that allows companies to make reasonable profits on the investments that they've made, but that gets rid of this kind of gouging behavior.
Prices in Canada are higher than the U.S. due to various taxes, including the carbon tax. There are calls across the country for Ottawa to pause that tax to deal with high prices.
Birria grilled cheese for Asia.
Kelly McKenzie is selling sandwiches to the crowds at the Pacific National Exhibition. He runs 6 food trucks. Gas costs him nearly $1,200 a week right now.
We've had to raise our prices, which is hard because, we want to offer, a product that's good for families. Birria grilled cheese here.
Another example of how high gas prices can raise the cost of living far from the pumps. Renee Filipponi, CBC News, Vancouver.
It is a cold case 14 years old, but now Vancouver police say a man has been charged in connection to 4 sexual assaults against a young woman in the downtown core. As Yasmin Gandam tells us, the suspect was found in Saskatchewan and brought back to BC.
It was here on Christmas Eve in 2010 when a woman was allegedly assaulted while walking in the downtown core. The incident followed 3 other alleged assaults against women between the ages of 25 and 35. One on Canada Day in 2009 at Granville Island, the next in November of the same year in the West End, and then 7 months later, a third in Yaletown. More than a decade later, 45-year-old Arturo Garcia Gorjon has been charged with 4 counts of sexual assault. Police are hoping the arrest provides some much-needed answers to the victims and their families.
It's an intensely personal decision for any victim of a violent crime to come forward and share their story with police. We owe it to those who do so to do everything we can to support them, to identify the people responsible, and to hold those offenders accountable.
The arrest comes after Vancouver police launched Project Scrimmage with hopes of finding the suspect, obtaining evidence from the public. Wilson says the break in the case came in January when investigators linked the first 3 attacks to the Christmas Eve assault in the downtown core. Investigators then traveled to Saskatchewan to arrest Gorjon and bring him back to Vancouver to face charges. Now, a judge has released Gorjon on conditions, and he's currently living in Vancouver but does travel for work.
I don't know off the top of my head exactly what they are, but I can tell you that our investigators are well aware of those conditions. We do have a safety plan in place, and we're making sure that he abides by those conditions.
Gorjon will make an appearance in court, but that date has not been set yet. VPD say they do not believe there is any threat to the public at this time. Yasmin Gandam, CBC News, Vancouver.
As we told you last night, health officials say a new highly mutated COVID variant has been found here in BC. Our Eva Yugwen-Singe is looking at the warnings and what you need to know as we head into the fall.
The new COVID Omicron variant detected in the Fraser Health region, BA.2.86, has more than 30 mutations. The World Health Organization has named it a variant of interest, but BC's top doctor says it's not yet a cause for concern.
There's no indication that so far that it causes more severe disease.
But a rise in cases this fall is likely.
It will go up in terms of the number of cases in the fall. It's respiratory virus season. It's not unexpected.
Conway says while things are still relatively calm, British Columbians shouldn't let their guard down.
Last week in Canada, there were 30 deaths due to COVID.
And health officials say booster shots will be key to maintaining immunity.
85% of British Columbians probably have had COVID. It's created this hybrid immunity, and we just need to build on that with the new vaccine when it becomes available.
The province is planning for a full immunization campaign this fall, but is still waiting for details on when up-to-date vaccines will be available.
It's a matter of Health Canada approval, so they're happening, but we expect to bring forward information, sort of the plan for the fall. We've obviously already developed a plan for the fall for respiratory illness season in acute care, and you'll see that very soon.
Dix was speaking from the site of a brand new long-term care facility in South Vancouver this morning.
We're going to be taking steps, obviously, to protect people in long-term care in the fall, starting with vaccination. But the testing and our understanding of what's going on in long-term care, it's a daily issue now and will continue to be.
In the meantime, people with mild symptoms are encouraged to access rapid home tests, and the more accurate PCR tests will only be used for people with more severe illness. Eva Yugwen-Senge, CBC News, Vancouver.
To other news now, Joffrey Lakes Park will be temporarily reopened this long weekend. Access to the park has been limited as the Lil'wat Nation and the Inkwakwa First Nation are holding a harvest celebration on that land. But with the long weekend coming, the two First Nations have agreed to open the park for public use from Saturday to Monday. It will then be closed on Tuesday until it reopens on National Truth and Reconciliation Day. That is on September 30th. Commuters in Richmond are being warned of upcoming disruptions on the Canada Line. TransLink says service will end at 9:30 each night from September 5th to December 19th. The impacted stations are between Bridgeport and Richmond Brighouse. A bus bridge will operate between those stops. This is all to help the ongoing construction of the new Capstan station. Canada Line service to YVR will not be affected. Canada, meanwhile, has updated its travel advisory to the United States, warning LGBTQ people that state laws and policies may affect them. And advocacy groups here in BC echo that concern.
It really takes an extra effort and time, consume extra time to plan things out and to try. And if you need to go for any reason, whether it's for work or vacation or visiting family, that you need to take precautions and doing research.
The risk level for the United States is still green, which is, quote, take normal security precautions. The advice does not call out specific locations, but when asked for details, Global Affairs Canada referred to laws banning drag shows and restricting access to gender-affirming care for transgender people. Still with travel, Canadian passport holders will soon be unable to obtain visas when they arrive in Egypt. Starting this Sunday, Canadians traveling to Egypt will have to apply for a visa through the Egyptian Embassy in Ontario or the Egyptian General Consulate in Montreal before they leave this country. As of October 1st, this will also apply to Canadians who have proof of Egyptian citizenship who could previously enter that country without a visa. The Egyptian Embassy says the rule change is in response to Canadian measures that deny visas to Egyptian citizens. BC conservation officers are asking for your help after they say someone illegally killed a grizzly bear near Squamish. The service says the dead bear was reported August 10th floating in the Squamish River. A necropsy showed it had been shot and dragged into the water using a rope. Officers say the bear had been relocated from Squamish almost 3 years ago and did have an ear tag. It was known to spend time near where the Cheakamus and Squamish rivers meet. Hunting grizzlies was banned in BC in 2017, except for ceremonial hunts by First Nations. Conservation officers also say it's illegal to not report even an accidental or defensive shooting. If you're found guilty, you can get a year in jail and be fined up to $100,000. It is a different story for several bears in northern BC. Meanwhile, 5 young black bear cubs came up to a Prince George woman's backyard and turned it into their own playground on Monday. Wendy Chartrand woke up around 7 a.m. and came across quite the sight outside her window. All this comes as conservation officers say they had to kill 21 bears in the first 3 weeks of August as they became used to human sources of food.
I always look out my bedroom window because we live, the slough is behind us. So I always look out the window just to see if there's anything out there, and woke up to find 3 bears on my side lawn. And when I went back to look at the window, again, there was 5 bears. It is really a once in a lifetime photo opportunity, right? And yes, there's been a lot of good compliments. We're on their territory, so we just need to be mindful. Like they say, get everything picked up. But I picked my apple tree. My garbage is in a shed. If it's food that can really stink, it gets put in a Ziploc bag and in the freezer till garbage day. So I'm trying to do my part to prevent that.
More than 20 types of energy drinks have been included in a Canadian recall. The Canadian Food Inspection Agency is concerned energy drinks like Prime may not be safe because of the amount of caffeine in each drink. Prime argues its drink falls within the legal limit of the countries it's sold in, but the more caffeinated version has been found in Quebec and Ontario, resulting in the brand not complying with Canadian laws. Other brands like the Sonic the Hedgehog, Toxic Rick, and Bob Ross are also being recalled. Now, if energy drinks aren't your thing, maybe a peach Bellini hits the spot. It certainly does for Drake.
You got 30 minutes to send 4 of them peach leans over to my hotel room right now. Them leanies, them Lena Marie's, them Lena Turners, peach Leanioski. It's my last show in Vancouver. Like, I need the juice up. Like my brother Train would say, like, I need the juice up.
The hip-hop star posted a call-out to Cactus Club on Instagram this afternoon from his Vancouver hotel room. Sure enough, within minutes, the drinks were hand-delivered. We asked fans what other local food and drink they would recommend to Drizzy.
Bubble tea. Sure, bubble tea. I would definitely say he should go try some Indian food, probably like Tasties or something. They do have a location in Vancouver as well, so that's something I would definitely recommend that he should go try out.
Korean fried chicken, honestly. Vancouver does it best. Haven't had it anywhere better, so I'd say you should probably check that out.
Drake ordered the drinks ahead of his second rescheduled show at Rogers Arena tonight after his Monday concert was canceled. A Mountie involved in an assault caught on camera was sentenced this week. Will the Kelowna RCMP officer see jail time? We'll tell you after the break. Thanks for being with us on our commercial-free live stream tonight. Athletes from across BC and beyond gathered in honor of a Canadian downhill racing legend. He grew up biking on Vancouver Island. Steve Smith died at the young age of 26 several years ago after an enduro motorcycle crash. Claire Palmer has more on how he's being remembered.
It's been 7 years since the passing of Steve Smith, who went by Stevie, a racing icon and inspiration to so many Canadian mountain bikers, both young and old.
Stevie Smith is a really iconic downhill racer, so it's super cool to be racing in his honor in this sick track.
I think it's really cool to have my first few races in the memorial of Stevie Smith, and I'm excited to race it.
In honor of Stevie, riders took on the challenging Monster Mile at Mount Washington, fueled by the legacy of their personal hero.
Stevie, he's my hero, and he definitely inspires other Canadian riders.
A portion of the proceeds from the 7th annual memorial race goes to the Stevie Smith Legacy Foundation, a charity dedicated to mentoring Canada's next generation of elite gravity athletes. The event is also a BC Cup event, a part of a series of races where athletes compete for the BC Cup.
Whether it's bikes or skateboards, it's just kids out there, outside, not inside gaming. And that's what kind of Steve wanted. You know, he wasn't a gaming kid. He was an outside kid. And that's what he wanted to instill in others if he could.
Stevie was born in Cassidy, a central Vancouver Island community near Nanaimo. Throughout his career, he showcased his talents at events all over the world and is considered one of the greatest Canadian racers. He was the first Canadian to win an overall downhill World Cup. He died in 2016 at the young age of 26 in an enduro motorcycle accident.
I think Stevie's legacy really carries through the hearts of all the mountain bike community and will continue for many years to come.
His mom says events like this and Nanaimo Steve Smith Bike Park help carry on his passion for growing the sport.
Some days it's very emotional because in all those kids I see Steve, and I want them to know that they can do it too. That's what they really want. And yeah, I just see a lot of little Steves out there and it makes me happy.
Claire Palmer, CBC News, Mount Washington.
A Kelowna RCMP officer will not serve jail time for an assault on a nursing student 3 years ago that was captured on camera. Constable Lacey Browning was sentenced this week in a case that gained national attention. The CBC's Brady Strachan reports.
It was surveillance video in January 2020 that brought this case to the RCMP's attention. That video was then viewed by millions of people around the world in media reports and on social media during a time of heightened attention to cases of police misconduct. The video shows Constable Lacey Browning attending to a wellness check on nursing student Mona Wang. In the video, Browning is seen dragging an unresponsive Wang out of her apartment suite, down a hallway, and into the lobby, where she later pulled on the unresponsive student's hair and stepped down on her head with her boot. In court this week, a judge called Browning's treatment of Wang criminal, saying it was highly inappropriate for a police officer responding to a person in a mental health crisis. The court heard Browning had been under considerable stress from her job and was struggling with compassion fatigue at the time. Browning pleaded guilty to 1 count of assault last year at the onset of her trial. The judge handed her a 2-year conditional discharge, meaning she will likely not serve jail time nor have a criminal record. As for her role in policing, the RCMP placed Browning on administrative duties as an internal code of conduct investigation is ongoing. Brady Strachan, CBC News, Kelowna.
And there's a shot of BC Place lit up to mark its 40th anniversary. Darius Madavi will have your BC-wide weather forecast right after this.
I'm here at Simon Fraser University to do a story on computers. I wonder if my boss made the right decision to send me, whether or not he used the right process.
The university has one that helps management make decisions about hiring, firing, and who should make coffee in the morning.
Does the problem have a quality requirement such that one solution is likely to be more rational than another? Yes, no, or help? Yes.
This one is called a decision support system. It can even be used in the television news business. The story assignment editor wants to know if it's worthwhile to do an item on, say, computers. He plugs in and is ready for action.
I must have done something wrong. Is acceptance of the decision by subordinates critical to the story? Certainly should be.
The computer lists a series of predetermined questions. The operator answers yes or no. The result is a printout from the machine that indicates whether or not to cover the story and how it should be done. If he's wrong, he can always blame the computer.
Spelled my name wrong. Not gonna do it again.
Embarrassing, eh?
Certainly is.
The next thing could be a machine that does the reporter's job.
And now we're looking at the final recommendations the computer makes, and now all I have to do is go ahead and follow its suggestions or make a decision on my own. Okay.
Writes, edits, and narrates, and never makes a mistake, and never makes a mistake.
No, you're putting in your name. You're on the first question.
Oh!
And never makes a mistake, and never makes a mistake. As long as you kick it once in a while.
The weather update is brought to you by Direct Buy Furnace. To cool and clean the air in your home, call Direct Buy Furnace. Installing Trane, the most reliable heating and cooling brand.
Time for our BC-wide weather update with climate and science specialist Darius Madavi. The moon's doing stuff.
The moon is doing stuff.
What's it up to?
That's exactly right. So right now the moon is in perigee, meaning that it's closer than it usually is. So on average, when the moon is at this point in its orbit, it is closer than it usually is. It's even closer than on average how close it gets compared to the closest it gets, if that makes sense. And it's also a full moon tonight, meaning we have a supermoon, and since it's the second full moon this month, it's a blue supermoon. So very exciting stuff. Moon, as Dan very eloquently put it, is doing stuff, as is the weather. We've been having some good rain in the southern interior, which is good news. Temperatures have come down quite a bit, so low temperatures, plenty of rain, a bit of wind too, but we haven't heard too much about how it's been exacerbating the fire situation. So overall, a bit of good news in terms of that rain. Going to keep happening tomorrow. We have another low pressure system set up, so that'll bring some more rain to the southern interior, mostly focused around the Kamloops area this time. Chance we'll get some as well over the next 24 hours, probably overnight into the morning, but don't expect too much. Probably just a sprinkle, not like the storm we had very unusually earlier this week. So bit of good news in terms of the rain situation. In terms of smoke, things might get a bit smokier heading into the weekend here in Vancouver. Tomorrow isn't too bad because we still have the low pressure set up, but outflow winds likely to return Friday and Saturday and pushing that smoke back towards us on the coast. Things, as we might expect, still pretty bad in the parts of the interior, especially further up north where temperatures are a bit higher than they usually are still because of that high pressure system. And resuming into Vancouver again. So tomorrow, expect temperatures to stay low through the southern interior. Still plenty of rain, even for places on the coast. Up north, staying a bit drier, except in Fort Nelson. They might get a bit of rain as well tomorrow. And here in Vancouver, we see that rain tomorrow morning before it clears up a bit. A couple days of warmth before we get back into the rain for a proper Vancouver forecast for next week.
I'll take it. Thanks very much.
Thank you.
That's your late news for Wednesday. Thanks for joining us. For news anytime, check our website, cbc.ca/BC. Your next local news is on the early edition on CBC Radio 1. That starts tomorrow morning at 5:30. Good night.